Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revan, and this is the Sunday 7.
On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we get to hear what Richard III might have sounded like. Will Guyatt tries to put a price tag on Google Chrome. We get the latest on COP29, and Jason Derulo has some thoughts on AI. Remember, if you're enjoying this episode, please do follow us or leave a review. And we're here every day of the week with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 at 7 a.m. But first, it was on this day in 1859 that Charles Darwin published a book that forever changed the way we think about nature and evolution. It was based on his voyage on the Beagle and the information he gathered, which led him to the conclusion that species are the result of a gradual biological evolution, which nature encourages through natural selection to make sure that the species are best suited to their environments.
7. We're therefore following in the footsteps of our ancestors, and with the ascent and advice of the side prelates, dukes and barons of our realm of England, have determined to honour our dearest firstborn son, Edward.
That's the voice of King Richard III, or at least the closest approximation of it that scientists and experts across the UK were able to create. Richard was King of England from 1843 until his death in battle in 1845, and he has always been a figure that has fascinated historians as the last king of the House of York. It was only in 2012 that his remains were discovered under a car park in Leicester by Dr. Philippa Langley, who was behind the Looking for Richard project. His identity was confirmed by DNA analysis, and over the last 10 years, experts have been working to create a realistic digital avatar of the king based on work by craniofacial identification expert Professor Caroline Wilkinson. Creating the avatar then led to the question, what did King Richard III sound like? And the team brought in vocal coach Yvonne Morely-Chisolm.
This is not about a movie or a drama or an entertainment. This has been 10 years of work asking experts in various fields so that this is evidence-based work.
They worked on the detail of language and how it was spoken and written, along with the accent, to make sure that everything was as accurate as possible. The avatar, which now speaks, is on display at York Theatre Royal, and historian and mastermind of the project, Philippa Langley, is delighted that the whole thing has come together.
We've got leading experts in their fields who've been working on this for 10 years. And so everything has been meticulously researched, meticulously evidenced. So you're seeing the most accurate portrayal of Richard III.
There's no end in sight for the battle between big tech and big law, and that has been the theme of 2024 so far. This week saw Google face a whole new set of headaches as a US court made a sweeping judgment against the search giant that could see their empire substantially broken up. When it comes to search giants, there's only one giant intellect we trust to puzzle out what is going on, and that is the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. So, Will, how bad is the news for Google?
Having to sell off your web browser will be pretty transformative for Google. Let's not forget that around 70% of all of us do our day-to-day internet stuff through Chrome, and that puts Google right at the top of the chain for the flow and control of information online, and not just the ad sales bit. Mind you, that's what's helped make Google's parent company Alphabet worth over $2 trillion. Google will be desperate not to be broken up.
Who would buy Chrome, and what are you buying? Surely it'll be difficult to separate from Google's other products.
Reports suggest that Chrome alone is worth around $20 billion, so it's not like a plucky startup will be getting its hands on it quickly. If I was pulling out any one likely contender right now, it would be Amazon. They've certainly got the cash, but surely that's just kicking the whole anti-competition conversation down the road another 2 years or so before someone suggests that Amazon abused its dominance to push more cheap toilet roll ads on them. them. And without all of Google's other bits behind it, what are you really buying and how are you going to start making cash back by buying Chrome? And separating it out will likely be every bit as difficult or possibly impossible as you imagine, as Chrome isn't a product just on its own. It interacts with everything else in Google's ecosystem like YouTube, Gemini AI, and all of the plumbing behind Chrome that makes it the world's fastest and most favoured browser. And some of this will come down to the fact of just how open-minded a clearly upset Google will be when it's forced to make Chrome stand alone.
And there's a threat to Android too, is that right?
If the US government is unable to push through with its plans to break up Google, forcing it to sell off Chrome, it says it also has a plan B in the locker, and that would be to get Google to sell off its Android operating system. That's now on over 50% of smartphone devices worldwide and is essentially the gateway to all Google services, including its browsers, its advertising business, and is where it now generates huge amounts of its money because we're no longer on desktops and laptops all the time.
Another tech company in the spotlight is Roblox. They finally had to crack down on what seems like poor safety standards.
Roblox says its new safety features will block under 13s from direct messaging on its platform unless parents give them permission to do so. They will also be blocking certain games that are unsuitable for those under 13 to play. Social hangouts where you can text and chat have been really popular on Roblox, but under 13s will no longer be able to access those too. Now, as a platform loved and used by millions of younger children around the world, it will surprise many of us that those features were still actually openly available.
Alarming when it's seen as a site for kids. Is it safe for unsupervised youngsters?
I think the key to this is that letting any unsupervised child online is never going to be without risk. There are always horror stories wherever you look. I know that Roblox does have a dedicated safety team, and I can say this because I've met them and interviewed them. But when a service is so incredibly popular with around 30 million young players, bad stuff will always sadly slip through the net. But this tightening up protections for under 13s on the platform is most definitely a welcome move.
Thursday night saw the Golden Joystick Awards. Who were the big winners? Well,
video gaming's answers to the Oscars took place in London and had millions of votes from gamers around the world. This year, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Helldivers 2 led the way with the most awards, and Black Myth Wukong took home the top prize. That was a huge win for Game Science. They were a first-time developer. Gamers named the Steam Deck PC handheld their favourite gaming hardware of the year, and no surprise at all that Grand Theft Auto 6 was their most wanted game. That's still set for release around 12 months from now.
And finally, we might ask you to pop a Santa hat on and suggest some tech gifts next week. Anything spring to mind right away for the tech nerd in your life?
Talk about putting me on the spot. Off the top of my head right now, it's Nintendo's Alamo. We mentioned it a few weeks ago. It's 90 quid and not the new tech we all really wanted from Nintendo this Christmas, but it makes me wake with a smile every day, and that's something I've longed for. I'll pull out the longer list for next week.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, we catch up on COP29, and there's a breakthrough in the battle against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The COP29 climate summit in Azerbaijan has been anything but harmonious. The event started with protests over the location for the conference, as Azerbaijan is one of the world's largest fossil fuel producers, following on from last year's event in Dubai. With UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres becoming increasingly vocal about the need to speed when it comes to addressing climate change, you'd think that there'd be a consensus emerging and actions agreed. That hasn't been the case, though, with Argentina withdrawing its delegation before negotiations even began. The shadow of Donald Trump and his reluctance to accept the realities of climate change has also had a significant effect on the event, with many global leaders simply not attending. As negotiators struggle to find a compromise over the issue of funding climate transition, two distinct paths emerge, one favoured by the richer countries and the other by the developing world, who need to find $1 trillion a year to fund the transition to greener energy. Harjeet Singh is in Baku to represent the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, and he says attendees are starting to consider the unthinkable.
No deal is better than a bad deal. That is absolutely clear. If we go with a bad deal, it's not going to provide any support to developing countries to have an ambitious action, which means that we are all going to be suffering. Everybody is going to suffer if we fail at this COP.
Even before any new deal is agreed, a lot of the funding that was promised previously has not yet been delivered. The US under Joe Biden had pledged $11 billion for climate action, with $3 billion of that due to be donated to the Climate Fund. However, so far only $2 billion of that has been delivered. White House climate advisor Ali Al-Zaidi spoke to Bloomberg about the US commitments.
I have all the confidence in the world that the U.S. will be able to meet that overarching target, which when it was set, I think surprised everybody, felt like an ambition well beyond business as usual. And I think if we're able to deliver that, able to close that out, that will show the seriousness with which this administration has tried to pursue these objectives.
Andrew Steer is the president and CEO of the Jeff Bezos Earth Fund, which has committed to $1 billion investment in climate action. And he says the work done so far has made a difference.
People say, oh, the Paris deal is failing. Important to remember that before the Paris deal, we were heading towards a 4°C increase in temperature. We're now heading towards a 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius. I mean, name another period of, 9 years where that much progress has been made.
Bacteria becoming resistant to antibiotics is one of the most severe threats that mankind faces from a medical point of view. But the good news is scientists are working on a range of solutions. The University of Leicester is the site for the UK's Phage library, which is aiming to fast-track a different kind of approach to dealing with bad bacteria. Phages are a type of virus that infects and kills bacteria, but they are very specific about which bacteria they work on. Professor Martha Clokie is a professor of microbiology at the University of Leicester, and she's also the head of the Centre for Phage Research.
My research is important because one of the major problems that's facing humanity is the inability to treat bacteria that make us sick. Most recent figures suggest that 5 million people already every year are dying from an infection. And what we're trying to do here is find new ways to treat these infections using viruses naturally infect and kill these bacteria. And what we hope to do in the future is actually be able to use them to save lives.
One of the projects at the centre is being run by PhD student Theo Joseph, and he's been focused on a cocktail of phages intended to help tackle persistent UTIs.
We don't really know whether the proportion of the early, middle and late genes has an impact on the therapeutic potential. So we want to try and really understand why phage do what they do. And then finally, we want to use this knowledge to develop an ecological framework to try and group these phages together. We can hopefully identify what traits are best for cocktail development and those that are most therapeutically efficient or successful.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, Jason Derulo shares his thoughts on AI, and we hear about new treatments to target Tourette's.
Right after this.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Welcome back.
Jason Derulo is not necessarily a name you'd expect to hear on the Sunday 7, but he's been busy this week doing a special event for the Make-A-Wish Foundation with partner TikTok, and he's been chatting about technology, platforms and how he feels about AI. The music industry has been particularly wary of AI tools, which have seen sound-alikes and voice clones pop up all over the place and sparked a flurry of lawsuits from copyright owners. Derulo has sold over 250 million singles worldwide and had 14 songs go platinum, so he's pretty well qualified to speak on the matter. He's also a big deal on TikTok with 65 million followers, and he says he only really started to engage with social media during the pandemic. He told Kay Burley on Sky News that he's not worried about AI and he's looking forward to using it as the technology improves.
I will embrace it. It's not good enough yet, but when it is good enough, I will embrace it because I just feel like with my wealth of knowledge of music, I can utilize different tools to make the music that much better or just have more ideas. I think you have to utilize it just like everybody else utilizes it as a tool to progress. You know, just like Google, right? I mean, we all have brains, but I mean, we all go to Google to figure out something that we don't know. For writing a song, if I'm having a day where I kind of have a vibe and I know what I want to write about, I can type in my vibe and then maybe AI will give me, 6 different options of something cool, and then I'll work with that option. Just utilizing it as a tool, not as a crutch. I think if you're able to do that, I think music will still have its integrity.
Tourette syndrome affects about 300,000 people in the UK, manifesting as uncontrollable verbal or physical tics, which can be difficult to control and make life difficult for sufferers. The syndrome typically emerges in children around 6 years of age, and it disproportionately affects males and tends to be at its worst during the teenage years. There was good news for sufferers this week as NICE, that's the National Institute for Healthcare and Excellence, has approved 2 new technologies which may help people manage the condition. The devices, which will now be available through the NHS system, are called the Orbit, which stands for Online Remote Behavioural Intervention for Tics, and a wrist device known as NewPulse. Orbit is accessed via a web browser and intended as a self-help support system with guided videos and online support from a therapist over a 10-week period. NewPulse is a device worn on the wrist, similar to a smartwatch, which delivers low-intensity pulses to the median nerve, which will appear to help reduce tic duration and severity. Jess, Thom, co-artistic director of the Tourette's Hero, says it's welcome news.
It's really exciting to have any new technologies or approaches or treatment pathways for people with Tourette's. Families are waiting far too long, Biscuit, to access diagnosis and support, and are often left with very little information about Biscuit, a complex condition that Biscuit affects people in very individual Biscuit ways. So anything that connects people to support more quickly is brilliant, and anything that gives people tools and approaches, Biscuit, Hedgehog, that they can use within their life to manage the impact of Tourette's is powerful. I think lots of people are better at recognising Tourette's. Biscuit, I think the complexity of the condition and how it can impact Biscuit people's lives is not necessarily brilliantly well understood. Biscuit, the thing I would say is that people's approaches and responses to tics can make a huge impact. So the condition itself is really unpredictable. The only predictable thing about Tourette's is that it's unpredictable. Biscuit, but other people's unpredictable Biscuit reactions and responses really affects quality of life.
As global warming and particularly ocean warming accelerates, there's been huge concern about the health of coral reefs. Australia's Great Barrier Reef is continually monitored, and coral bleaching because of high ocean temperature is a real threat to the health of a crucial part of the ocean ecosystem. So there was good news this week when a previously unknown coral was discovered in the southwest Pacific Ocean. Eric Brown of National Geographic says this is a significant moment.
Now, the significance of finding coral like this goes beyond simply enjoying the moment. It really shines a light on the significance of coral reefs worldwide, what their critical role is in the ecosystem.
The reef was discovered accidentally during a National Geographic ocean survey, and it's actually not technically a reef. It's actually a single piece of coral which has been growing for hundreds of years and is now bigger than a blue whale. It's located near the Solomon Islands, and Climate Change Minister Trevor Main-Mahaga says it's a positive sign.
Coral reefs is very important. Our economy depends very much on marine and fisheries for its survival. We take heart from it. We take pride from it. And it's important the world to know that it's a special place and it needs to be protected.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
At Leidos, a brilliant mind is smart, but a brilliant team is smarter. A ship that finds enemy subs is smart, but an autonomous fleet, that's smarter. Defending against cyber attacks? Smart. Stopping attacks before they start? Smarter. And using AI tools is smart, but integrating trusted mission AI into your technology is smarter. We're not just making technology solutions in national security and health. We're making smart smarter. Leidos.